Okay, so everyone, many of you have asked me to explain the marking scheme for physics because apparently it's not clear enough. Okay, first I'll start at the general marking principles. You read them themselves. It's common sense. You don't even really need to read them. Just it just says your marking, your the way you mark, it has to align with the way that the marking scheme wants it. Not like align exactly. It has to be similar, and you have to be consistent with your marking. You can't like deviate. Okay. See, as you can see, marks awarded are based solely on the requirements as divided in the marking scheme. Marks should not be awarded with great thresholds or great descriptors in mind. So, يعني just award with the marking scheme. Okay. So for this one as well, honestly, I would recommend you read it yourself. Spelling has spelling that like is like crucial to the sentence. Spelling is the crucial like spelling that's crucial to your answer. You need it to get it correct. But if you misspell like and as ADN, for example, you switch the N and the D, they don't really care. They can get the meaning. But if you misspelled, for example, you take physics here. If you misspelled refraction, you wrote like an I instead of an A, they count it wrong. The error carried forward principle should be applied where appropriate. Okay, error carried forward means you list the wrong formula, for example. Okay, you get an answer based on that formula. If the marking scheme tells you to apply the error carried forward principle, you apply it, which means you get the wrong formula, so you lose 1 mark on the formula, but you get an answer. So you get an if you applied the formula you made correctly, like your incorrect formula correctly, you get an answer point. But you get down ECF, you write down ECF, and you remove the point for communication or your method. I'll show you later. Okay, list rule guidance for questions that require and responses. For example, state 2 reasons. The response should be continued as read as continuous prose, even when numbered spaces are provided. That means you read it as one continuous sentence. You read like basically as a paragraph. You don't read one, two, three, four. Any response marked ignore should not count towards one of them. So if you write this, like for example, say A, you wrote A, B, and C. Like say A describes something, B describes something, and C describes something. You wrote A and B and C. They said ignore what B. So it doesn't count towards the state 2 reasons. So you get the mark for A and C. Read the entire response to check for any responses that contradict those that otherwise will be credited. Okay, so if you even write a whole thing correct, like a 2 whole paragraphs correct, and you write one wrong sentence that goes against your answer, they mark it wrong. It's treated as a single incorrect response. Now, non-contradictory responses after the first and responses may be ignored even if they include incorrect signs. So you stated your 2 reasons, right? And said your 2 reasons weren't ignored. It didn't say ignore anything. After like for example, your third response, if it was wrong, they'll ignore it. Like they won't think of it. They won't consider it. But that's only for like if you fulfill the number of responses they want to do. Okay, calculation specific guidance. Correct answers to calculations should be given full credit even if there's no working or incorrect working, unless the question states below show working. Okay, what this means? You get full credit. This by the way, this is only applicable to 1 marker questions. Because if you look at a 2 marker question, it says calculate. You write down your method. You lose a mark for not writing down a formula or not showing your work. For questions in which the number of significant figures is not stated, credit should be awarded for the correct answers when rounded by the examiner to the number of significant figures given in the marking scheme. This may not apply to measured values. Okay, self-explanatory sentence, but whoever grades your exam, in this case you, if you're doing the past papers, round your answer. If round your answer to what the marking scheme wants you to round it. This is when you award. This is when credit is awarded. Generally, it's to like to the nearest whole number, like to the nearest tenth. Generally speaking, I said this in the past paper solving video, and if it's like a decimal, you take it to 2 significant figures, or yeah, you round up. Basically, it's common rounding. Whatever you should know. For answers given standard form, example A times 10 to the power of n, in which the convection of restricting the value of the coefficient, which is A, to the value between 1 and 10 is not followed, credit may still be awarded. Okay. We took this in science tools and skills. Standard form, A, which I remember was the mantissa, or the coefficient. It has to be between 1 and 10. Okay, that this is standard scientific notation. But here they said, for example, if you write, say your answer was 1100. Okay, let me just get an open board. Open board. Okay, let's just wait for it to load. There we go. Say your answer was 1100. Okay, now this in scientific notation would be written as 1.1 times 10 to the power of, one second, you go back, 1, 2, 3 times 10 to the power of 3. But if you wrote 11 times 10 to the power of 2, they'll accept it correct. They'll give you a mark. Or if you write 0.1 times 10 to the power of 4, it's fine. They're all awarded answers. But if they want you to, this, don't use this. What I would do, I would use the scientific notation if they wanted me to do that, first of all. And if they did, I would keep it in the scientific notation. Chemical equations, this is for chemistry. You don't need it for physics. Okay, this is where a lot of you asked me about because you didn't understand it. A mark, for example, here, in everything, in every calculation or in general, you'll find A marks. A2 here, C1, B1. The numbers, I'll explain them now. A mark is the answer mark. Okay, this is your final answer. This is including the unit, by the way. If you write down 50 and they didn't give you the unit, like they gave you this blank space here, and they told you like density, for example, D equals to whatever. You write 50, say the density was 50, which I don't really know. And you don't write kilograms per meter cubed or whatever the unit was like you work with. Wrong, incorrect. This is without this, you're incorrect. You'll get 0 for your answer. You won't get an answer point. You'll get working if it requires working, but you won't get the answer point. Compensatory mark when which may be scored when the final answer A mark for a question has not been awarded. Okay, let me look for an example here. Say you wrote this down. Say you did this, right? You wrote this mark, but you didn't write this. You didn't write 77 grams or 0.077 kilograms. Instead of getting A2, you get C1. That's the you compensate for the mark because you showed you're working. That's a compensatory mark, but you didn't get the thing. You didn't get the answer. Or it's this. These are the general cases. It's they explain it here. Anyways, independent marks, which do not depend on any marks, is the B marks. Uh, okay. So say you got the answer wrong. Say you got this wrong. Okay. But you got these two, B1 and B1. Like the independent mark doesn't depend on an answer. It's generally applied on formulas or just like definitions. You'll see it as you correct yourself in the marking scheme. M mark. M mark is the method working. Okay. The method mark is you're working. This is how they grade you on your working. So what they say, method mark which must be scored before any subsequent final answer. A mark can be scored. This is why I say always show you're working unless it's a 1 mark question in which they'll only ask you for the A mark. So, but in general, always, even in 1 mark questions, get show you're working so you can get your M marks. Now brackets. Words not explicitly needed in an answer. However, if a contradictory word, phrase unit to that in the brackets is seen, the mark is not awarded, which is why, and the last one I said for delta E, it's their preferred answer. The delta was in brackets in the other marking scheme. The delta was in brackets, but it's their preferred answer. So if it contradicts, if you find an answer that contradicts whatever is in the bracket, they ignore it. Your answer is wrong. Okay. Underlining. Underline means you have to be your this exact word or a word similar to that has to be in your answer. If it's like scientific, like convection, if convection was underlined, there isn't really a synonym to convection. It's underlined, it has to be there. Okay. Slash or. Okay. This means it separates your answers, not separates your answer. Like A or B, whatever. You can choose whatever to get that 1 mark. Let me see if I can find on here 0.077 kilograms or 77 grams. They both give you the marks for the answer point. They give you for the A mark. They're both correct. You can choose any of them. OWTTE or words to that effect. Okay. If you did bio, the simplest way I can explain it, if you did bio periodic, the one that had past papers, there was in the Mikey scheme, like you would see some questions that had AW, alternative wording, or any valid point. At any valid point, actually, that's irrelevant to this. OWTTE means basically is alternative wording or words to that effect, so words that are alternate. But give the same meaning. Ignore indicates either an incorrect or irrelevant point that's not treated as contradict. Anything that's not really relevant to your answer, but it doesn't contradict your main answer. Okay, insufficient. It's self-explanatory. It doesn't award credit by itself. It needs to be with another one. CON, incorrect point, which contradicts any correct point, and the mark cannot be scored. This is the contradiction point. Here, ignore. It's not relevant to the question, but it's not contradictory. It doesn't contradict the statement. Okay, ECF question part. I explained what the ECF is. Indicates a candidate that has used an erroneous value from the stated question part and must be given credit here if the erroneous value is corrected. Basically, they said CAO, correct answer only, ORA, or reverse argument. Okay. Uh, or reverse argument, you're not gonna see it a lot, and if it does, it's very very rare. Like if I look it up, ORA, other than this. Or did it say Pythagoras is not relevant? See, in this entire mark scheme, they don't ask about, they don't mention ORA. It's really like it's really rare, and if it does, it's in the name or reverse argument. So like for example, uh, convection or no, and the washing machine thing. The air that left the condenser was drier than the air entering the condenser. The or reverse argument, the ORA would be the air entering the condenser is more moist than the air leaving the condenser. This is a question in the paper one thing, the paper one video I covered, and I'll cover paper two today, hopefully. And yeah, that's pretty much all you need to know about the marking scheme for Cambridge IGCSEs. These are for science, by the way, mostly for science. Math, I'll explain the math marking schemes when I get to the paper two of algebra. Okay, good luck, guys. Have a good day.